Hello and welcome to Legendary Locals and Locales. Today we're going to continue on with our visit to the great state of Vermont. We're going to check out some falls in the northern part of the state, along with some really scenic locales that we happened upon along the way in that region as well. We'll also discuss a local who really made a big impact on our understanding of the weather. So with that, let's get going. Moretown.
All right, good morning. It is Monday, June 30th, here in Moretown, Vermont. Not really a waterfall, but still kind of something really cool. We're standing on a one-lane bridge. It's it's a bridge. But anyway, check this out. It's really pretty cool. Just Mother Nature and all her splendor right here. Yeah. Hemlock tree growing out of that broccoli down there. Look over that. Go back out for it. That's special.
After coming home and starting to put stuff together for this video, I couldn't help but think that the rocks at Moretown were significantly different than some of the other places that we had visited in Vermont. I am not a geologist, as I stated before. What I probably am is a keyboard warrior who is about to disseminate inaccurate information instead. While poking around on the internet, I found that the Appalachian Mountains in general, and the mountains of Vermont in particular, were at a fault boundary or maybe even boundaries in the Earth's crust for millions of years. Sometimes the plates at the boundary were moving away from each other, allowing the land to upwell. Think Iceland. As I understand it, this is how most of Vermont was formed. Then there is an area of the state called the Moretown Formation. Right, who knew? In this case, the plates were pushing towards each other. Think the Pacific Northwest, Mount St. Helens, that type of thing. It doesn't just upwell. The pressures from below really crank things upwards. The black bands in this rock are likely amphibolite, which is a lava that was either deposited or intruded, then metamorphosed, and then tilted upwards during the tectonic collision of the plates. As I said before, there are no falls in Moretown, just some really interesting, very ancient history with its geology. The town itself is really quaint and cute and worth a stop. I look forward to stopping back there someday. Maybe this fall when all of those leaves are magnificent shades of orange, red, and yellow. I bet that is a sight to behold as well. Winooski Falls.
We're now at Winooski Falls, which is in the city of Burlington, Vermont. And, I don't know if it's kind of cute, kind of cool because it's a really wide falls. I'm not sure what river it was on. I'll look that up. But yeah, typical New England old mills on the opposite side of town. Real easy falls to get to, kind of like that. So, but one yesterday where I in there fell in there, but anyway. Here, let me see, turn you around and you can enjoy it.
Winooski Falls is probably one of the least scenic of the falls that we visited, but that doesn't mean that it wasn't worth stopping if you happen to be passing through Burlington. It is very easy to access, and with 15 minutes of free parking, there is plenty of time to see what you need to see. Okay, so I may be being a bit harsh with that comment, I guess. Truth be told, it is more of a rapids than a falls, but I bet it is probably more interesting in the early spring when the water is higher. This is Chase Mill, spelled C-H-A-C-E. It and hundreds, if not thousands, of these types of mills are what kicked our country into high gear economically back in the day. Chase is the sole survivor, At one point, there were more than a dozen mills operating pretty much in a complex, all jammed into the same area, all powered by the river. Some of the things produced in these mills were flour, yarn, paper, linseed oil, lumber, ship block production, plaster of Paris, cotton, along with grain milling. Today, the property has been converted to a loft-style office space and mixed commercial use. Amenities include an on-site cafe and free parking with some offices having river views.
After I got thinking about it, this is actually the Winooski River, and it is fed by the Mad River Glen that we were on yesterday with a bunch of different waterfalls and stuff. So this kind of ties it all together for you.
The Old Red Mill.
So we are in Jericho, Vermont, at a place called the Old Red Mill, and not a waterfall. It's not a waterfall per se. It's got some nice water flowing through it. I guess actually one time this town had a whole bunch of mills in it. So anyway, we just thought it was be something that's kind of picturesque, and it's kind of not too far from Burlington when we were up there. So stopped in. Let me give you a little shot of this. Oh, obviously, thinking they had a water wheel attached to the side of that building one time, maybe. I guess there might have been a dam in here. Gotta talk to the guys in a minute, maybe, that are working on, looks like they're taking this big rock out. So, kind of wonder if they're gonna kind of put the mill pond back in. I don't know. Let's see. Maybe. Still pretty cool. Very, very picturesque. I don't know. It might be one of my most favorite places to stop that we've kept here this week. So we took a tour inside the building, and it's actually very cool inside. They actually have some of the old mill equipment still set up in there. They have a pretty unique way of funding it. They use artisans to sell their stuff here, and they take a commission on it, and that's how they fund their museum. So the other thing that's very interesting, there's a fellow named Bentley that used to live here in Jericho, and he's the dude that actually figured out that no two snowflakes in the world are the same. And so got a great exhibit of that. I'll throw a few pictures in and kind of go through that too. But anyway, if you ever get a chance to come to Jericho, come to the Red Mill, Old Red Mill, well worth the trip.
On the day that we visited, they were having guests enter through the side door instead of the door, which you can see that was located at the front. This was due to the construction, or maybe destruction is the appropriate word. Crews were working to clear the riverbed. One thing is for sure, if you have ever been in a working grain or feed mill, there is dust everywhere. Dust is definitely a thing of the past for this particular mill. They have done an excellent job of making a welcoming, inviting atmosphere. You can also see many of the items that the local artisans have brought in to sell. To me, this is an awesome idea that perhaps more historical places that are not necessarily on the proverbial beaten path should think about adopting. In this case, it certainly seemed to be a win for both the artisans and the museum. The mill originally used millstones to grind flour like most of the mills of the day used. In 1885, a major renovation was undertaken in which roller mills were installed. This upgrade was the equivalent of going from a Model T Ford to a modern Ford Explorer. Both will get you there, but one is going to do it with a lot more style and comfort. In this case, going from millstones to roller mills had the effect of being able to have much better control over the consistency of the flour products being produced. Additionally, the roller mills were significantly faster, allowing for a significant increase in production. Prior to the upgrade, the owners of the mill did some milling of grains from the Midwest, along with locally supplied grain. After the upgrade, a significant increase to Midwest grain production was achieved. According to the old mill website, this was the first mill in New England to use the roller mill process. When they updated to the roller mills, they also upgraded to using water turbines instead of a water wheel or wheels. In order to gain enough energy to drive the turbines, the riverbed had to be deepened by about 10 feet to reach a 27-foot total water drop. To do this, they used dynamite, which was a relatively new technology at the time, to break up the channel. They also had to lower the floor of the wheelhouse as well, also using dynamite. Apparently, the folks of the day thought it was pretty novel that the guys using the dynamite did so without damaging the building. To start the milling process, grain would be delivered to the mill and unloaded into the basement. A bucket elevator would carry the grain to the second floor where it would be sorted into bins. The grain would then come down the wooden tubes to the mill on the right-hand side of this picture. The grain then would be crushed between the rollers in the mill. With this mill, you can see that there are ridges on the rollers, which made for a coarse grind. The processed material would then drop down through the bottom of the roller mill and drop into the basement. It was then carried by a bucket elevator back up to the third floor, where it was cleaned to get the seed hulls out of the flour. The flour would then drop down to the second floor, into a bin, and then back down into the next roller mill, which had smaller ridges on its rollers, allowing for a finer grind. The process was repeated until the flour either reached the last mill, which had pretty much no ridges on its rollers, or they stopped after the second or third mills that they did not need the finished product to be so fine. To me, it is fascinating to see how ornate things were during this time period. From the manufacturer's name being embossed into the machine, to the chrome on some of the handles, to the finishes on the wood tubing. None of this was necessary to make flour. It was necessary, however, to satisfy the creativity and craftsmanship of the people fabricating these machines. It was also necessary to fulfill the pride of the new owners of said machines. I think that we have lost something important in that regard within our culture over the years. The term, "it's a doozy," referring to the ornateness of the Duesenberg automobile, is something that would be wonderful to reintroduce back to the world. Finally, we have the chute where the finished product would come down from the second floor and fill the barrels. I just had a thought. I wonder if there was a cooperage nearby. Anyway, the barrels would be filled and loaded onto wagons and then shipped to places all over by various means of transportation. You could then head down to your local general store where the clerk would measure it out in whatever quantity that you might need. Alright, let's talk about a fella named Wilson Bentley who was a resident of Jericho. Ever heard that no two snowflakes are ever the same? Mr. Bentley was the first person who hypothesized that this might be the case. He was a farmer by trade, but had a passion for snowflakes. This picture is in the museum. It was likely taken around 1885, when at the age of 19, he figured out how to connect a camera to a microscope and make it all work. Then he figured out how to take a snowflake and place it on a black piece of felt without damaging it. He wore thick mittens so that the heat from his hands would not harm the snowflake either. And then, voila, he took his first snowflake picture. Between the mill getting its upgrade and Mr. Bentley snapping a picture of a snowflake, 1885 was a pretty amazing year for Jericho, now wasn't it? This is one of Bentley's first cameras. Being that I live not too far from Rochester, New York, I wonder how much of an impact Eastman Kodak Company may have had upon Mr. Bentley's work.
I suspect quite a bit. In 1881, the Eastman Dry Plate Company was formed to manufacture and sell the glass plates that you can see laying on top of this camera. This was a microscope that Mr. Bentley used to preview snowflakes to determine if they were worth further study and photographing. Bentley liked to make montages of his photographs. The snowflake cross was a favorite of his that he liked to give as gifts for special occasions. In addition to photographing snowflakes, he studied and photographed weather phenomena such as thunderstorm formations. This was in the days before interchangeable telephoto lenses. Since he knew how to hook up a camera to a microscope, he figured out how to hook up a camera to a telescope. As a side note, his brother gifted a manual from Bausch & Lomb to Mr. Bentley, which happens to have been another Rochester, New York company, on the use of telescopes. He definitely had a lot of family support as his mother helped with the original purchase of camera and microscope. In the gift shop of the museum, they have prints of Mr. Bentley snowflakes. Believe it or not, no two are the same. Stop in and take a look if you ever happen to be in Vermont. I thoroughly enjoyed the mill, the snowflake exhibit, and the works of the artisans. When you're done, take a ride about a mile south and stop at Snowflake Chocolate. The smell when you walk into the place is delectable, and the taste of the chocolate is absolutely heavenly. Love! We spotted this in a hayfield near Chamberlain, Vermont on the way to our next destination. In the words of the Beatles, all you need is love. This is probably the most Vermont thing we saw on the whole trip. Enosburg Falls. We were looking for more waterfalls to look at, and we spotted a town called Enosburg Falls on the map. With a name like that, it's gotta have a set of falls, right? Well, not if they built a dam in front of the falls. To be fair, I'm not sure that they did build a dam in front of whatever falls the town was named after, but if I were a betting man, I might put some money on it. In a way, it is a bit of a shame, as this really was the only view, and it seems that it really could be picturesque. It really was a nice town, though. Big Falls of Missiquoi State Park.
So we're here in Big Falls. That's the name of it. So no imagination there. But anyway, it's in up near the Canadian border of Vermont, and I think it's in a town called North Troy. I double check that. But it's easy to get to, but it's kind of interesting just standing out on a ledge that's may or may not have anything under it. Not sure. But anyway, here's the falls. Alright. Then anyway, there's a big old crack here. It's kind of sort of came apart at some point. Very beautiful. Slightly different vantage point. Get there, well.
I tripped right there. It doesn't look nearly as dramatic as it felt. Whether from nearly going over the edge or nearly having a heart attack, I am pretty sure that I used up a couple of my 9 lives at the same time. I don't mind saying that I was a touch bit scared after that.
So kind of got an upper falls here as well. The kind of cool with that rock with the trees growing out of the top of it. But then the big falls are off to the right. Pretty cool. This is worth the trip, I think. I like that picture right there. I'm going to get a few stills of that.
Located on the Missiquoi River, the Big Falls has an estimated drop of about 100 feet, with the main falls being about 40. It is the biggest falls of its size in Vermont to have never been developed for water power. By now, you should know of my enthusiasm for mills and water power, but in this case, it seems perfect that it has never been messed with. There is a feel of old-growth forest as there are many evergreen trees, especially hemlock. I suspect that in reality, this is a new old growth, if you will. When the English came to New England, they started in mowing the forest down to feed their industrial revolution and for masts for ships. Prior to coming to North America, they got a lot of their masts from the Baltic region, places like Latvia, Estonia, and Finland. After the revolution, Vermont was nearly deforested by the early settlers to make farmland. Later, better land was found west, so the farms went to the wayside. The forest then primarily became hardwoods. They are now slowly returning to what it was 500 years ago when the English first arrived. This set of falls is a bit off the beaten path in comparison to the rest of the state of Vermont. But then again, Vermont is kind of small. They are spectacular, so it is worth taking a drive to the northeast corner of the state. I highly recommend a visit. Just don't trip when you get close to the edge. An awesome view of the mountain. After leaving Big Falls, we were traveling along near Morrisville. We saw a barn that was really cool and I wanted to get a picture, so I picked the entrance to this hayfield to turn around in. I momentarily forgot about the barn. This view was just absolutely stunning. When Catherine Lee Bates wrote the line "For Purple Mountain's majesties above the fruited plain" in the song America the Beautiful, she was talking about Pikes Peak. But she could have just as easily been talking about this slice of Vermont. We are so blessed to live in the country that we do. The Round Barn. Now let's talk about a beautiful round barn. Round barns certainly are not unique to Vermont, but it is an area of the country where they were very popular. There were two basic designs, completely round, or in the case of this one, diagonal. It appears to have about 24 sides. The reasoning for a round barn is that more of the available space could be used with increased efficiency over rectangular barns. Typically, the main purpose of these barns was as a dairy barn. The first floor is where the cows were kept. The stalls were designed so that the cow's front side pointed at the middle of the barn, and their back sides were pointed outwards. There were likely 2 cows per wall angle, so this barn had a capacity for about 48 cows. In front of the cows was a manger for feed. Directly behind them was likely what was called a drop. This was a narrow trench that caught the manure from the cow and made cleaning up after them significantly easier. Behind the drop was a pathway for the animals to enter the stalls and for the farmer to access the cow's udder for milking. To the left, we have a ramp entrance to access the second floor where hay would have been stored. Under part of the ramp, you can see what appears to be a small room. This is the milk house. After the cows were milked, the milk was stored in steel milk cans. The earth around the bank would have had the effect of helping to cool the area in the summer, keeping the milk from spoiling. In the winter, it had the opposite effect, as it helped to keep the milk from freezing. The hay that was stored on the second floor was easily dropped down right in front of the cows through holes in the floor to the first floor for feeding. Being round, the farmer would not have to walk nearly as much as he would have if he had a rectangular barn. The last unique feature is that there was a silo right in the middle of the barn. Corn silage or perhaps grain would have been stored here. The silo would have had extended all the way down to the first floor where it was unloaded and fed directly to the cows. In a traditional rectangular barn, silos are located on one side of the barn and usually require a lot of walking and the use of feed carts to carry the material to the animals. The interesting thing is that modern dairy farms use what is called a rotary milking parlor, in which the cows walk onto a turntable and it moves in a circle while the cows are milked. Really not such a different idea from the round barn, except with the parlor the cows move, and with the round barn the farmer did. Whoever owns this has done an amazing job of keeping it up. It is absolutely beautiful. The State House. It was mid-afternoon, and we had been so busy checking things out that we had neglected to find ourselves some lunch. So we decided to take a bit of a detour to the state capital of Montpelier and the 3 Penny Brewing Company for some chicken wings and an adult frosty beverage that really hit the spot. In case you did not know it, Montpelier is the smallest state capital in the U.S. It only has 8,074 residents as of the last census. On the way out of town, we had to stop and shoot a couple pictures of the State House, which is a Greek Revival style building built in 1857 and 1858. The dome is topped by a statue of Ceres, the Roman goddess of agriculture. As a farm boy, I kind of like that. It might be a small capital in a small state, but like almost everything else in Vermont, the State House is beautiful. The Great Eddy Covered Bridge.
Well, can't come to Vermont without looking at a covered bridge or 2 or 3 or 25. I don't know. Last trip that we came out here, that's what we focused on. This trip's been Waterfalls, but this one's actually in the town of Waitsfield. It's right in the main street. I think the sign said maybe built in 1803 or 1833. I can't remember. We'll post some pictures that actually show that, but just very picturesque, and I highly recommend going looking at covered bridges in Vermont if you ever happen to be out here. So, hey. I'm getting much prettier than that, I don't think.
Why so jumpy, amigo?
Let's try that again, shall we?
I don't think it gets a whole lot prettier than that. And again, this is actually on the Mad River. Mad River Glen ski area. Sugar Bush is just down the road here a bit too. But anyway, it's a really beautiful place.
The Waitsfield or Great Eddy Covered Bridge was built in 1833. It's looking pretty good for being almost 200 years old. It is the oldest operating covered bridge in the state of Vermont. The basic structure of the bridge remains intact, but much of the flooring and braces were replaced in the 1970s. The pedestrian walkway was an original part of the bridge, but had been removed sometime along the way. It was reincorporated into the bridge with the project from the 1970s. The bridge is what is referred to as a Burr arch type. This is a design developed by a fellow named Theodore Burr in the early 1800s. The theory was that the arch can better handle the load dynamically, shifting the load more evenly to each end of the bridge. The uprights going up to the roof were there for stability purposes rather than carrying the load like in a king or queen post bridge. Computer modeling 200 years later suggests that the opposite may be true, with the uprights transferring load through tension to the horizontal beam and the arch is stabilizing the structure. Either way, it is a much stronger bridge. In addition to being the oldest still functioning bridge in Vermont, it is the longest per arch type in the state as well. 192 years and still going strong. What a testament to some great engineering. It is not only functional, but it's also beautiful. I highly encourage a trip across it if you happen to be in the area. The Apalachin Gap.
So I wanted to share this with you. We're on our way home to New York, but this is pretty cool. We're on Vermont State Route 17 between Waitsfield and Bristol. And there's a whole lot of mountain between those two towns. So let me share this with you. It's just a beautiful, beautiful vista up here. You get a little closer over the other side. So that's just amazing. This morning it rained and we got all this mist and stuff that's like blowing up the valley, blowing right at me, blowing right at us. Just kind of see that mist. Very pretty. See if I can insert you out a little bit here. More, a little better view. So we're right near the Mad River Glen ski area, just down the hill, back over that way. And I think the skiers actually stop here in this guardrail's a little bit of a tough life, but they put their stickers from all over the world on there, which is pretty cool. See that as well. Stickers on top of stickers. Up over here, and you get a really good idea of how rugged the mountains are really in this state. Very peaceful, but gets a few times I've been up here, it gets pretty windy. As the wind gets funneled right up that valley. So, but anyway, hope you enjoy.
At this point, the weather started to close back in, and you could not see the tops of the mountains off in the distance. The Apalachin Gap passes between Stark Mountain and Baby Stark Mountain at an altitude of 2,369 feet. It is located in Buell's Gore, which has a population of 29. Just in case you were wondering, a gore is an unincorporated area within Vermont that is not a part of any township. In other words, it's just a place that is there. To get there, or to get out of there, you have to travel on State Route 17. It is one mean piece of work in that there are tons of hairpin turns with grades of up to 18%. The Department of Transportation puts up curve signs sparingly, so if you see one, you better believe there's a sharp turn coming. Considering that it is called the Apalachin Gap, one might think that the Appalachian Trail might run through it. It does not. There is a trail that runs the length of Vermont that is 272 miles long, called, you guessed it, the Long Trail, that does run through the gap. No one seems to know why it is called the Appalachian Gaps. It's technically within the Green Mountains, which I guess are part of the Appalachians. So, well, I guess there is that. Anyway, I must say that I've enjoyed stopping up there every time that I pass through. It is very, very beautiful. Auger Falls. Come along with me on a bit of a hike out to Auger Falls. I'm throwing this one in as a bit of a bonus. This trip has been all about Vermont, but we came back through the Adirondacks on the way home. And well, what's one more waterfall? Auger Falls is on the Sacandaga River, which eventually flows into the Hudson and then on out to the Atlantic Ocean. The main falls drop about 40 feet, but there is an overall drop close to 100 feet. The falls probably got its name from the water as it twists its way down through the gorge. If you happen to be traveling on Route 30 through the Adirondacks, it is definitely worth a look.
So today we're on our way home from Vermont, and we came back through the Adirondacks. And after we come up Route 30, and we saw a sign for this place called Auger Falls. And anyway, it was well worth the stop. About a 15-mile hike out here. Or not that. I'm sorry, 15-minute hike. But yeah, just some fun. So, yeah. So I wanted to share with you some of the trail on the way back out to those falls, or Auger Falls. And what a difference between here in Vermont. I mean, it's not really comparing apples to apples, I don't know. But somebody is just a freaking artist right here with the way that they managed to put all these stones in together. And just, it's like perfection as far as, and still keeping it really natural and what have you. So anyway, we're headed on home, but thank you for sticking around with numerous while we check out waterfalls in Vermont, one in New York, and a few other things in Vermont. So we'll catch y'all next time.